My name is Edith Santo. My position is that Griswold and Roe were correctly decided, but Casey was not. Griswold was correct in establishing that privacy is a fundamental right. Although not expressly provided in the Bill of Rights, I do not believe that the framers of our Constitution intended to limit liberties to only the handful that were specifically enumerated. My views on this issue are colored by my background and experiences. For 22 years, I lived under a brutal communist regime that egregiously violated the fundamental rights of its citizens. Based on those experiences, I strongly believe that the right to privacy should be a fundamental human right. While I agree with the judgment of the Griswold Court, I do not fully embrace the reasoning. I believe that the court should have placed the right to privacy squarely within the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment from the beginning, as opposed to taking a relatively brief detour towards penumbras. Having said that, I do understand the court's reluctance in light of the Lochner era, and while short-lived, penumbras did provide a vehicle to eventually get to where we needed to be, the right to privacy being a fundamental right protected by the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment. I also believe that Roe was decided correctly. Privacy is a fundamental right that is broad enough to encompass a woman's decision whether or not to terminate a pregnancy. And pregnant women have a fundamental right to decide whether or not to have an abortion. Furthermore, strict scrutiny is the appropriate standard to apply in these cases. Again, my views are greatly influenced by living almost half of my life in communist Romania. When one lived under a regime that had mandatory gynecological exams to detect and document pregnancies, and attempt to prevent women from being able to have even unsafe back alley abortions, one can easily see that the decision of whether or not to have an abortion falls under the broad fundamental right of privacy. I strongly believe that the pregnant woman's decision to have an abortion or not is a fundamental right. I also believe that Roe's trimester framework made sense at the time. However, I do recognize that the use of fetal viability as a marker does create some problems, as it is vague, very complex, not universally agreed upon, and could be a moving target as medicine and technology continue to advance. And therefore, relying on it for abortion policy does create some unique challenges. Lastly, I do not believe that Casey was decided correctly. I do not agree with eliminating the first trimester as a period during which pregnant women can be free from abortion-related governmental restrictions. Nor do I agree with replacing the strict scrutiny test with the much weaker undue burden standard that sets the bar too low. I believe that states should be required to show a compelling governmental interest and that the state action was narrowly tailored to advance only that interest. A skeptical judicial attitude against regulations of abortion should apply, and there should be a presumption of an unconstitutionality when the state action impairs a fundamental right. Additionally, the Casey pregnancy timeline has only one marker, fetal viability. This allowed legislatures to move the ban on abortion or ability to criminally prosecute women who get abortions or providers of abortions earlier and earlier in the pregnancy. This framework inherited the challenges associated with the ambiguity of fetal viability in the Roe trimester framework, and it not only cracked the door but pushed it wide open for legislature to push the envelope further and further and enact legislation covering pregnancies from the time of inception on the pretext of helping women make informed decisions. We live in the information age. Between their physicians and the wealth of quality, reliable information available online from reputable sources, women do not need lawmakers' help to make decisions about whether or not to end the pregnancy. Those are the main reasons why I do not believe that Casey was decided correctly, but I do believe that Griswold and Roe were.